Good morning. Welcome to Ag Talking to Raw, where I talk raw about agriculture and other things that are on my mind. Yeah. Okay, so I did one of these yesterday, and I read some of the comments against Chucky 2009's advise, and it just some people are really out to lunch on the ethanol thing. Okay, ethanol. Does it rot carburetors? Well, actually, no. Ethanol doesn't rot carburetors. Ethanol, gasoline, attracts moisture. The moisture that the ethanol attracts rots carburetors and jets and ports and things like that. So if you are going to run your equipment and then store it for, say, over the winter time, you need to go down to the gas station and buy yourself some high octane, the highest high test Sunoco gasoline you can get that says no ethanol, and put that in there. And that slurp of coffee was for Beyond Idaho that says that I drink too much coffee. Anyway, yeah, he's a good guy. He used to make some pretty decent videos, and he made like 4 or 5 videos. I thought he did a really good job at it. I watched them when he posted them. It's been about 3 years ago, and he was selling his 4320. I think was the last one that he had done. So that sip of coffee was for you. Okay, so all right. So with the ethanol thing. I'm going to read some of these comments because this is basically what this is going to be, a comment reading Ag Talking to Raw. Okay, other than I drink too much coffee before I start talking. This is a full cup, the first cup and the only cup that I drink in the course of a day. I'm pretty high strung when I wake up in the morning. This coffee is really, I don't have to drink it. I just do. And I solemnly swear that I am up to no good. You should put 50% ethanol in diesel fuel. No, actually, what they should do is put 50% biodiesel or soybean diesel or soy into diesel fuel. And I'm going to explain why this is not as expensive as everybody thinks it is when I'm done reading these comments, just so you know. I'm not just saying we need to do this to support farmers, even though we do need to do this to support farmers. So... All right. Hey, Wes, love your videos and your point of view on stupid people. You got to love the morons out there. We have a dairy farm here in PA, and we have the same problem here with stupid drivers. And there are way too many people out there like that to take advantage of farmers. But any other time, we are worthless as the world. Fuck them. Okay, so... Well, that was rather a bold statement. Yes, people do suck. They really do. I live in New Jersey, only 50 miles from New York City. It's an hour's drive. The people leave the city, come out to the country, shit it all up, and then in 15 years, 20 years, when their kids are grown and moved away back to the city, they go chasing them back. And then we have a crashed housing economy, which is fine. I don't mind. Not that it stopped them from building some houses, but it has slowed that down. Okay, your ethanol screws up my vehicles. IIRC MTBE was a product from the late 80s. Yes, and it went into gasoline in the early 2000s when it left gasoline in the early 2000s when George Bush was in office, and he said, you know what, that stuff is poison. And it is. It was really bad stuff. I don't know if half of you guys are old enough to even remember this. The warnings on the gasoline pumps, don't get this shit on you because it'll fuck you up. That's not exactly what it said, but that's what it said. And that brings me down to Kenneth Harry, and he says, quit using the F word. Well, you know what? This channel isn't for pussies. So if you've got a pussy in place of your penis, then you just need to stop watching this channel. How's that sound? Because I say the F word. Anyway, get an external USB-A enclosure or dock for those old drives and connect it to the Mac. It will read them, and you can copy off the files. I have Wicked Coyote, what was that? Get an external USB enclosure. I need one of those. Does anybody know where to get one of those? I mean, Wicked Coyote, if you know where to get one, I don't. I know where to go get John Deere parts and Case parts and Alice Chalmers parts and any other parts that I need to get. But when it comes down to these computers... Staples, maybe? I don't know. Off the internet, I guess. But I'd have to remember what I was doing, and I would have to know what to do with it once I got it there. I have built computers in the past, but they've totally changed since then. So it used to be fun to build a computer. Now it's like a waste of time. If you want to spend a lot of money to build a computer, that's what you do, or you just go down to Walmart and buy one. Or in my case, I bought a Mac, which was very expensive at the time, but the cheapest computer I ever bought. I bought this thing in 2012. Okay, it says, Jake Reynolds says, Wes, slow down on the ads, so hard to watch. Well, there are no ads. I didn't put any ads into this video. It's just what Google or Gobble My Balls says to do. Gobble My Balls says, you're going to get 6 ads on this video. There you go. That's what you get. I don't touch that. I'm not Chucky 2009. He puts them in, I think. I mean, his are hard to watch because of all the ads. It takes twice as long. So I just let Gobble My Balls do it. Excuse me, that coffee went a little down the wrong pipe. The smell of money. Okay. I don't know what that means. Okay. While in theory, ethanol may reduce the price, companies always look to make a greater profit. Some of the savings may be passed on to the consumer. But if the consumer is uneducated, they won't know. Now, come on, Wes, if you're constantly looking for ways to please shareholders and employees, would you not want them to have bigger slice of the pie? Well, the cold hard fact of it is MTBE was a oil derivative, and the oil companies were more than happy to produce that to raise the price of gasoline. And about 2 years ago, I saw a study, and it was in a farm magazine. I think it was in the Top Producer magazine when I used to read that thing all the time. I don't read it so much now that I'm out of the grain market. I'm going to have to start reading it again just to keep up on what goes on in the world of corn. But I read it was an article, and it said what the public should really know. And what the public should really know is that gasoline, it should be cheaper than what it is. You are 100% right there, Zuki 416B. The gasoline should probably be 50 cents a gallon cheaper, but what they've done is in place of the ethanol, they added a tax. We got taxed 35 cents. We got a 35-cent tax since last year on our gas and diesel fuel. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous what they taxed us on that. So as the price of gasoline came down, they added a tax. And them motherfucking politicians will do it again. There's my F word again for you. So you tuck your pussy back in and go leave if you're still here. And they did. That's exactly what the politicians did. And that was a Chris Christie thing. He did that. I thought it was ridiculous. But, governors and other Republican governors and Democratic governors have dug New Jersey into such a deep hole that they need to do something to get us out of it, so they tax cheap gasoline. So that's where the price of gas has climbed up. Now, ethanol is, it is cheaper to produce. And like I said, at the end of this, I will explain that to you in a minute. I sure hope everything is okay with your family. My prayers are with you. Well, thank you for your prayers, because obviously they seem to have worked. I'm not going to get into it here as to what happened, but it seems to have worked. I'm rather surprised and shocked myself, but that's just the way it is. Anyway, MTBE, methyl tertiary-butyl ether. Tell me that didn't come out of an oil refinery. Is a flammable, colorless liquid that dissolves easily in water. It is part of a group of chemicals known as fuel oxygenates. Oxygenates do not occur naturally in gasoline. They are added to increase gasoline's oxygen content. Well, here's a concept. Instead of putting that chemical into gasoline to increase the oxygenation of the gasoline, require all manufacturers to add turbochargers to their cars. Because if you need more air in your car's air-fuel mixture, you put more air into it using a turbocharger. Superchargers are expensive to run because it takes power to make power. Obviously, a turbocharger also will take a little bit of power, but not nearly as much as a supercharger. So if you really want to have power to your engine and make it burn clean and efficient, add a turbocharger. So instead of paying one company billions of dollars to produce a chemical that could potentially poison us and our environment, we just get Ray J back in business and put turbochargers on everything, and or Garrett or whatever. There's turbochargers. Air Research turbochargers out there. Make it mandatory that all vehicles in the United States have got to have a turbocharger on it to get that air fuel mixture, the oxygen in that fuel up to snuff so that it burns cleaner. Turbocharged engine always burns cleaner. Now you get these knuckleheads that'll dump a bunch of fuel into there so they get maximum power and blow up their motors. But a car that is produced from a manufacturer with a turbocharger on it just for the sole purpose of burning cleaner, kudos to you-dos. That would work. But no, we got to pay the lobbyist, not the lobbyist, the company that paid the lobbyist all that money and award them the contract to put methyl ethyl butyl blah blah ether into it. I mean, ether will put you to sleep. I don't know. Whatever. Great talk, Wes. Love your vids. They're always interesting. Well, thank you, George Montgomery. Always enjoyable to watch your videos. Well, thank you, Degenera 2, Mad Farmer 912 Dave. I saw this on a t-shirt and was going to buy it, but they were sold out. He says, I farm because I don't mind hard work. If I wanted something easy, I'd call your mom or your mom. Farming, that's an awesome t-shirt, by the way. If I wanted something easy, I saw this before. If I wanted something easy, I'd call your sister, but never your mom, I don't know. Anyway, Anyway. Farming, the last respected, most underpaid, skilled profession in America. Yesterday was National Farmers Day, and 99% of America couldn't care less. All they know is their food came from the store. There was a time when there was some respect. And then there's some links down below here, which I don't remember if I clicked on them or not. Oh, yeah. Walmart and Dean Foods. Here, I might as well read that one. Oh, yeah, fuck Walmart. All they're doing is giving dairy, there's that F word again, giving dairy a bad image. That plant in Indiana has been shut down once already for quality issues. And don't tell me Dean's and Walmart aren't still working together. When shut down, the Dean's plant near me took 14 trucks loads of Walmart milk and backed up trucks from this area unloading for over 10 hours. Well, that stuff can only be on a truck for so long because once the temperature rises, I believe above 36 degrees, it has to go to cheese production. That's just some memories back in the files here. Walmart is the death of the dairy farmer. And besides, do you really want to drink that shit? I mean, honestly, as an ex-dairy farmer, when I had to go and purchase milk for consumption, I couldn't finish it. I'm sorry, that stuff was garbage. And it's no wonder people don't want to drink milk. It's no wonder the Mountain Dew and the Coca-Colas and Pepsi-Colas are doing so well in the world. Because if we had to drink that shit that they're producing at the milk plant, it's awful. It makes my hair curl, I did have curly hair at one time. I spread spent compost on my yard and the grass won't stop growing. Well, Michael Hill, you're correct. That shit keeps on going for about 3 years. What's the world coming to? For once, I agree with Obama over Trump. Ethanol is an expensive way to make fuel. We may be better off paying farmers not to grow corn. Mike Canaday, how do you figure it's cheaper? That's what I asked the man. And which is WH Jerts 56. Ethanol is cheaper than gasoline. And at the end of this video, I will explain to you why it is so much cheaper than the oil or the gasoline, straight gasoline or MTBE. An experienced guy like you can't possibly be drinking the ethanol Kool-Aid again. Just like your analogy about genetically modified corn, the unforeseen consequences of ethanol use cannot be quantified. And I asked him to explain why. I got no response. That was Smoothbore. Smoothbore, I really would like you to explain why. Alcohol is alcohol. It dissipates into the air if you spill it. It doesn't leave any residue. As a matter of fact, if you want to burn someone's house down and not get caught for arson, go down, get yourself some white lightning, spill it on their couch, light that shit up, and there's no trace of it because it is residue-less. It will not leave a residue. Gasoline, you can trace that shit all over the place. Not that I'm condoning you go and kill a bunch of people with white lightning, but yes, alcohol doesn't leave a residue. It is a non-contaminant. It comes from the earth. Yes, fossil fuels came from the earth also, but it's different. It is different. No shit, you're 100% correct. 100% correct. Farming is a struggle, even in a good year. There it is. I think farmers struggle with themselves in a good year. They're like, oh my God, I got to pay these bills off, but then I've got all this money, and if I don't buy something, then I got to pay the tax man. So what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then, it's the vicious cycle starts all over again. But if I buy this and next year's as good as this one, then I'll be okay because I'll be able to pay for this thing and blah, and I can depreciate and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not going to get into with taxes and stuff. And maybe now I'm talking a little too fast. How are you going to convince countries like Brazil to also grow less? If we in the U.S. grow less, price may go up and their countries grow more. Back to where you started a couple of short years. That is correct. That's why I said farming mentality. They'll just burn more jungle. They'll find more Mayan temples and pyramids and shit down in South America when they burn off the jungle. You're right. You are correct. But the one thing that they cannot do is produce the type of yields that we do up here. They just don't have it. They don't have the soil types. They do grow beans okay, but it's not... if they're growing 20 bushel beans, we're growing 60 bushel beans. That's just the way that is. At least that's the way it was a few years back when I was considering purchasing land in Brazil, going down in the wintertime and growing soybeans down there and up here in the summer. It was something me and my wife were talking about. I've been divorced since 2005, March of 2005. So we're looking at 2001, 2, 3 in that area. So we're closing in on 15 years. Well, 15 years ago. Say 15 years ago we were discussing that or maybe longer ago. My old man used to say to me that farming is basically learning to deal with a series of disasters. One finishes, one starts, and then you just get used to it after a while. He was correct. One year, the weather fucks us over. Oh, the F-bomb again. The UK has had this year also because the extreme heat burned off the crops in my area, and we have half the fodder than usual. The next year may be okay. Just keep on keeping on. And that's correct. One disaster after another. I am an awesome problem solver. I can solve problems in my sleep, I swear. Some problems I can't solve, but... most of them I can. I don't want ethanol. It makes corn more expensive for cow feed. Another misconception. That is a misconception, sir. Jeff Larson. Grass-fed cows taste better. A huge misconception. If I wanted to eat grass-fed cows, I would take my shoe, boil it for 3 hours, throw salt and pepper on it, and it would taste better than what? After a used shoe. After the grass-fed. I hate grass-fed beef. I might as well just chew on this thing. This is a USB port, a USB thumb drive, blah. I was stating a fact. More ethanol use in fuel means higher demand, raising the price of corn, and in lower northeast Pennsylvania, grass won't grow year-round because we get snow. Okay, Jeff Larson. My God. Okay, I can't. Not yet. Corn may go up, but also the byproducts, distillery grains. It's actually, yes, distillery grains goes down because of larger supply. You just have to rebalance the ration based on cost and availability of the commodities. Thank you, Mad Farmer. This is like the first one, Mad Farmer 912 Dave. Thank you so much, because that was on the long laundry list of things as to why ethanol is cheaper to produce than fuel oil. Only one, and I did want to touch on that remark about that. Yeah, grass-fed, you do not, well, the milk I'll give you that the milk tastes better. The milk does taste better from animals that are let to go to pasture and, not pushed to the limits of, human ability. You can feed grass to cows year-round. It's called hay, which is baled grasses of many types. Wes makes these bale things with his baler, not just not for cows. And yes, I know grass does not grow under snow. Actually, it does grow under snow a little bit. It always comes out from under that snow looking greener and nicer than it did going in. Same thing here in New York. Did you learn about farming from that other guy in PA on here? Oh, my God. I'm not going to mention his name. Sounds like you took his Farming 101 classes. Yeah. Okay. If you believe that the tough, fibrous, flavorless, overlean meat from an all grass-fed beef is better, all I can say is you have been drinking too much of the previously mentioned Everclear Kool-Aid. You probably have never been introduced to a properly prepared charcoal braised rare to medium rare ribeye steak from a beef fattened on 14 to 16% protein grain ration in confinement, yielding soft. I got to read the whole thing because muscle tissue of 18 to 25% flavor enhancing FAT fat. Correct. The only thing I can say that grass-fed beef can compare to is a deer that has been shot, dressed in an area where there is no corn or soybeans for 100 miles. A deer that is raised on acorns and foraging in the forest and maybe grass fields taste, and believe me, I ate one of those once and I would never eat it again because they're horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. And when I actually went to a restaurant and I was like, I'm going to try this gas-fed beef. And I was like, holy mother of Mary and Joseph, Jesus and all of his disciples. If I ever have to eat another piece of that shit again, I would rather eat my shoe. That's how I feel about grass-fed beef. Sorry if you're a grass-fed beef guy. And if you're feeding them alfalfa, that is not grass. But it's legal, they say. That's not grass. That's a legume. Might as well feed them soybeans. Okay, I have had both, and you can eat your fatty meat anytime you want. I will take 100% grass-fed any day. The rest of your statement is bullshit as far as I'm concerned. P.S. Please pass the Kool-Aid. I'm going to make some Kool-Aid with this corn I'm growing, I'm telling you right now. The grass-fed beef you're eating has been fed on grain 99% of its life, and you're too dumb to know they put it on grass 2 weeks before killing it. Bingo! I've been witness to that one also. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me? Actually, what they will do, and not to contradict your statement there, Nathan Link, is they will feed them on corn, grain, grass, alfalfa, hay, and then 2 weeks before slaughter, they will put them on grass. Or is that what you said? Yeah, put them on grass 2 weeks before killing it. That is absolutely 100% fact. I've seen 2 people do this locally, and they smile because they're like, oh yeah, it doesn't take 3 years to raise this animal. It only takes 18 months to raise this animal, and we call it grass-fed, therefore it's worth twice as much. So their turnover is twice as fast, and they buy new pickup trucks and tractors and put fence up and put a fancy sign at the end of their driveway. But that's not the farm that they're feeding their animals on. That's the farm that they're finishing their animals on. Yes, sir. That's how it works. So, yes, this guy here that says that he eats 100%. All right, wait a minute. Nathan Link. No, this is Marvin Hake. Hack, H-A-A-K. No, the beef is from family members, and I have seen the cows all their lives. Some may do it that way, but there are some scumbag ranchers, farmers who like to call others dumb. Oh man, that sounds like you. All right, come on, no shit slinging here. Marvin Hake, if you got that beef from your family members, great. I'm sure there was some clover growing in those fields, and maybe they were even supplementing with something other than grass. There's just, because I've had it. I'm telling you, I've had it. I've had 100% pure grass-fed beef, and I would rather eat my shoe. I have never had. If you can come up, listen, you mail me a piece of that beef. You mail it to me, and I will try it on film, eating this steak right next to one that was raised a good old-fashioned way. I still have some of that down in the basement, in the freezer, and I will tell you, I need a chainsaw to cut the shit, but whatever. I'll take the corn-fed beef any day over grass-fed. Thank you, Wagerts56. All right, so this thing is getting long now. Enjoyed your ag talk, thanks. I really want to get through all the comments because some of them are pretty amazing. Enjoy the ramble for 73-year-old ex-kid off the farm. Corn, silage, combining, mowing, baling. Missed. He misses it. Well, Rick Brandt, I miss a lot of those jobs too. Doesn't mean I'm going to be able to go and do them again because I just don't feel that it's fiscally feasible. Great live video, Wes. IHUS, this wasn't live. Rainmageddon of 2018. That's what Rainmageddon. That's about right. Wes. Okay. So, KeyJ74. KeyJ74. I'm sorry I cannot support your stance on ethanol at its current application. In our part of the country, we are mandated by state law to have a minimum of 10% in our highway fuels. That's how much MTBE was in there, by the way. Because of that law, fuel companies are charging more for fuel containing ethanol. So we lose both the better fuel mileage for an adulterated fuel and the added money for the blenders adding the less efficient material to fuel. That may be the case. Otherwise, I fully enjoy your channel and the content provided. Keep up the good work. Wish you and yours a good, prosperous life. Ken. Okay. All right. So there's some comments underneath there. And, okay, E85, the last time I was able to buy it was $1.90 a gallon versus $3.10. So I'd always buy the E85 when I was able to get it. The mileage was about 3 miles per gallon less. This is my comment, by the way. But it seemed to have a lot more power than the regular gas, in which it did. Ethanol, alcohol killing fuel pumps, rotting injectors, O-rings, and welding spark plugs to heads from 2002 to present. As we all know, alcohol does not mix with oils like gas. I only run unoxygenated classic car fuel in the daily drivers and Sunoco in the race car. Now, you can go to the airport and buy 100 octane gasoline and put it in your car. There's no ethanol in that, that's for sure. But it's going to cost you like $6 a gallon. All right. In my part of PA, the opposite. 87, 89 octanes have 10%. Maybe it's 15% ethanol. Not sure. Been that way for so long now, I pay no attention, and it's $2.99 and $3.19 respectively. And then 93 octane is non-ethanol at $3.89. And our prices are higher in PA because it's one of the highest gas tax states. My truck will run on E85, so I noticed no issues other than low mileage, but don't run anything two-cycle on it. Get the non-ethanol gas, or you spend more time rebuilding carbs, replacing fuel line, even if you use an additive. Well, a lot of these things that have been produced since 2000 and blah, 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 when they started the ethanol, 2002, when they started putting the ethanol in after they took MTBE out, they're designed for it. The fuel lines are designed for it. I have a 2010 F-150, and I have a 2002 F-250 and a 1999 F-550 diesel. The diesel, I'd never buy another diesel again. It has nothing to do with anything other than that shit sucks. So, anyway, the F-250, no problems. No rotten fuel lines, no rotten anything. I had a rotten brake line, which I had to fix, but that had nothing to do with ethanol. But yeah, I don't have any issues with the ethanol because those trucks were designed to take it. Didn't have welded on spark plugs, if you change the spark plugs at 100,000 miles, you're probably going to be okay with those. If you wait until they're broke off and rotted out from salt and other things, yeah, they're welded in there. So I can't agree with that too much. Replacing carburetors, this may be an expensive option, but I've done it many times in my chainsaws and my weed eater. Is I go down to like Tractor Supply and I buy this stuff called True Fuel, and the last tank of fuel that you run through it, buy the pre-mixed stuff, pump it in, put it in there. True Fuel will burn clean, and it will do a good job of preserving your carburetors and stuff. If you do not get True Fuel, go down to the hardware store or even the auto parts store and buy Marine Stable or Seafoam. Put a pretty hefty mixture of the Marine Stable and the Seafoam into your little fuel tank and run it. I've never rebuilt a carburetor because of this stuff. And I've been running engines, probably more engines than half of you people out there, and I just don't have the problems that you're complaining about. I just don't have those problems. So no rotten fuel lines. I had rotten fuel lines on an old chainsaw that I had, and that was because that chainsaw was built in 1989 before they put ethanol into it. And yes, the ethanol did destroy the fuel line, but I replaced it with the correct fuel line for ethanol, and it worked just fine. Okay, must be driving uphill all the way to Iowa and downhill going back home. There you go. Anyway, passed a bunch of round bales and field with black centers, horrible looking stuff. Yep. Okay, I'm going to need to get it together for this reaction. Ha 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 ha. You can lick it off your foot is what I would have told her. Grain alcohol right off the farm will knock your boots off. True. Anyway, I was first, McAndrew. Dave Dunn was second. And Canadian welder farmer Moonshine. All right, so that's it. Now to hit the nail on the head on why ethanol is cheaper to produce than, say, NTBE or regular gasoline. Top of the list for why this is cheaper. In 1990, we invaded we didn't invade. In 1990, the Iraqis invaded a small country called Kuwait. We have been fighting in that region ever since 1990, and it isn't because we wanted those people to not be oppressed by Mr. Saddam Hussein or be invaded by Mr. Saddam Hussein. It was for oil. Now, if you take this ginormous nut called the military budget, which I agree with, I mean, we should have a military budget, but we shouldn't be fighting that war for 30 years. I mean, we're talking damn near 30 years of fighting down in that region over oil. Okay, so we can produce ethanol right here at home. Right here at home. We can make biodiesel. We can make ethanol. We have oil in this country. We have a lot of oil in this country. We have gas in this country. We have all these wonderful things in this country that we could be using, but we don't. We choose to fight wars. Why? Fuck, I don't know. I don't think it's a smart idea, to be honest with you. So that's the big nut. All right. So the biggest thing is fighting wars for that oil. Now, so we fight wars for that oil for 30 years, cost trillions of dollars, so that we can go down the road like this. Fuck you, farmer. Fuck you, farmer. You know, that kind of thing. That's what pretty damn expensive. Number two, why ethanol is cheaper to produce than oil. How does it get here? Is there some magic sand genie in Saudi Arabia that you rub his fucking lamp and he says, whoop, over to the United States with that oil? No, we got to put it on tankers. We got to ship it across an ocean. Remember the Valdez? I think that came down from from Alaska, the Alaskan pipeline, where some of our oil comes from. You know, it's ours, so we won't dare pump it all out of the ground all at once. We got to do the expensive way. So these tanker ships got to come every day. And if you ever go, there's a website you can track these things on, and I've been on it. It's amazing how much oil is floating around out in the ocean at any given minute of the day, because it goes all over the world from that region. So that's two. That's two reasons why it's cheaper to produce ethanol here in the United States. Okay, what would the third reason be? The third reason to be is what happens to the grain, and some mad farmer, he said it, when you're done with producing ethanol. it takes about a third of, suppose this was a cup of corn, not coffee, but corn, and it was full to the top. And I produce ethanol from this cup of corn. There's still 2/3 of that grain residing in that cup after I take the energy out of it and convert it to alcohol. Okay, so now you have a byproduct. Now this byproduct, it's an amazing byproduct. It's called distillery grains. Corn distillers, we called it. We used it when I was growing up on the dairy. We mixed a lot of distillery grains. It's a protein. So once you take the energy out of it, you're left with this high protein distillery grains, roughage, forage, or roughage. It was good for the cows. We produced milk on it. So 2/3 of that is distillery grains. Now currently, the United States does not consume all the distillery grains that are produced here in the United States on ethanol production. The United States is exporting the ethanol. There was a comment there that said that one of them went out of business back, shortly after it opened up, and when corn went to $7, that ethanol plant closed down. Well, Poet was the one that bought it, and Poet reopened it more efficiently than it was before, and they are exporting ethanol all over the world, including the distillery grains. Distillery grains, they're used here in the dairy and beef industry, poultry too. I think you can't. Yeah, I don't think you can feed it to. Well, I think you can feed it to pigs, but you can't feed it to poultry. But I can't remember now. It's been a while since I researched this. So you got all this distillery grains. That's getting on a boat and getting shipped over to Asia because they feed hogs and cattle over there. And I know that they ship it to England. I know that for a fact. So these distillery grains, they're getting shipped all over the world. So now brings me up to that one guy that said that he doesn't want ethanol because it's going to make his feed too expensive. What's his name? What the hell was his name now? Jake Reynolds, slow down on that. No, that wasn't him. But anyways, where in the hell is that guy? Doggone it. Ethanol is an expensive way to make fuel. It's not. It's cheap to make that fuel. Anyway, and there's a lot of other things that they do in these ethanol plants that the vast majority of people don't really realize that they're doing with it. So anyhow, now you got a bunch of distillery grains on the market that's actually going to bring down the cost of feed. It really will, because you can supplement that distillery grain. The money's already made on the corn in the ethanol. That's it. The ethanol's made. They sell that commodity to dairy, beef, pork producers, and boom, they get their money back again. Now, there is also this tremendous amount of heat that is produced when they are distilling this ethanol. So what do you do with the heat, the steam, the heat? They build these ginormous greenhouses, and they're CO2 rich, if I got this right, and they convert that CO2 to oxygen through those greenhouses, so there is a zero emissions from these plants. I've read about them, and it was featured on Ag Today or whatever it was on TV, and it was in some of the farming magazines that by the time that hot air goes through those greenhouses and the CO2 rich air is through the greenhouses, you can grow tomatoes, peppers, whatever you're growing. All these vegetables are being grown within these greenhouses. Of course, the guys that are tending the plants and stuff, they are in suits, oxygenated suits, because they can't live in there. They just can't do it. So to harvest within these greenhouses, it works really, really well. So there's a lot of things that are going on that the general public don't understand. So, okay. Price of corn goes up. Now we're talking diesel fuel. All right. So now, oh my God, it takes diesel fuel to plant this. Yes, you're right. It does. But if they would do what was mandated years ago, you would add soy diesel, soybean fuel, soy oil into the diesel fuel to offset that. So now we're burning what we're producing. Okay. And it isn't that expensive to do so. The crushing plants. Purdue just built a ginormous crushing plant over here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Ginormous. Neighbor of mine, he was harvesting his soybeans, and they were purple. They were purple because of all the rain. So he's got a lot of purple bean stain, and he's like, well, now what am I going to do with this thing? Because the feed mills won't want it. So what did he do? He called up Purdue. Purdue says, no problem. They took it. No dockage for purple bean stain because it's going through the crushing plant. They're extracting the oil out of it. And where is that going? It's going into paint. It's going into oil. It's going into ink. It's going into all kinds of things. Plastics. And all kinds of things that 99% of people out there don't really know what happens to it. They think that once that bean plant or that bean and that corn goes into an ethanol or a biodiesel plant or a crushing plant, poof, it's gone. It isn't. We get soybean meal from it. I used a lot of soybean meal when I was milking cows. I mean, it would come in on semi-loads, dumped in the building, the commodity shop there. In the shop, we'd have distillery grains, soybean meal, corn, and then we would roast soybeans ourselves too, and we would put that into the feed, high moisture corn, corn silage, haylage, and dry hay, whether it be alfalfa, clover, or Timothy orchard grass mixes. That's what we fed our cows. We made milk on that. That's what we did. So if you're out there and you're saying it's so expensive because there's, and you're taking food from babies' mouths because if you put it into an ethanol plant or a crushing plant, you're destroying the food supply for millions of people. That isn't true at all. It isn't true at all. As a matter of fact, if you take soybeans and grind them up in their raw form and put them into cows, they don't digest it. They don't get anything out of it. It's just like filler going through them. Trust me, I've dumped soybeans into cows that were non-roasted. You have to grind them ultra fine in order for them to ruminate, for them to break that down and convert that oil into a fat, producing butter fat. So that's why we roasted them. We even roasted them ourselves in our grain dryer. You just put it in there, crank that heat until you smell smoke, and then boom, you're good to go. Run them out, grind them. They're ultra dry, they grind super fine, and the oil is converted so that the cows can digest it. So I hope you're starting to understand why it is cheaper to produce renewable energy fuels over oil any day. Fracking, expensive. We're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars just to put a pipe down a hole and pump up gas. Where alcohol burn, come on, give me a break. So if you think that it's detrimental to our survival on this planet to use renewable energies, you're the ones that have been drinking the Kool-Aid, not me. I mean, I can take biodiesel out, dump it on the ground, take a whole 10 gallons, dump it on the ground, and plant a tomato plant there. It'll grow because it's not fossil fuel that is like, the hydrocarbons in that stuff is just off the charts. Whereas renewable energy, all right, maybe I can explain this a little bit. Maybe people think I'm a stupid asshole or whatever, but that's fine. Fossil fuels are millions of years old. They've been concentrated over millions and millions of years. They've been there for millions and millions of years, and they are it's the dirtiest shit you can possibly come up with. That fossil fuel that has been buried in the crust of the earth for millions and millions of years. Whereas renewable energy is new, it's fresh, it's clean. It burns faster because it's not as old. It grows fast, it burns fast. This is how this was explained to me. So if you take corn and you have ethanol or alcohol, grain alcohol, white lightning, moonshine as some people will call it, it will just burn really quick, really hot. Whereas you go and you get that crude oil that's like tar down in the ground. It's full of carbon, biohydrocarbons. You can't even get it to light. It won't light. That's where that methane gas from the decay of that old oil is. That's why there's a refinery process. You can take crushed soybean oil right out of a plant, pump it into your truck, and go. Heat it. That's the one thing that you need to do for biodiesel is to heat it to get it to burn. And that's done electronically through your truck's generating system. Yeah, it takes a little bit of fuel to do that, but whatever. It's new, it's cheap, and you can drink that oil. You're just going to give you a little diarrhea. I ain't drinking crude. I can tell you that. Alcohol, you can drink it. They got to denature it so these guys don't get off of work all drunk and shit, when they're producing that. But anyway, yeah, I can't get anybody to explain to me why it's so much cheaper to just go out, fight wars, drill oil in foreign countries, pay off leaders and dictators and all these people to be, to let us take their oil, and you're getting paid all this stuff. And here's another thing. Why did we fight Iraq? You see, and here's probably another tidbit you didn't know. The only way that a country can purchase oil is with U.S. currency, the U.S. dollar. All right? So if I'm Russian and I want to go down to Saudi Arabia and buy 10 billion bushels, 10 billion gallons of crude oil to refine in my shitty factory that leaks and runs down to the Black Sea, like 50 miles of dead because they're pigs over there. Sorry, Russians, I'm sorry if I'm upsetting you, but too bad. It has to be purchased with U.S. currency. They can't just take their rupees down there and buy it. It has to be U.S. currency. And Saddam Hussein didn't want to use U.S. currency. So he came up with it was gold, and it was bar gold. That's what he was going to be selling his oil for. He didn't want to accept U.S. currency, even though U.S. currency put these people in the positions that they're at. Up until the 1950s, they were sand niggers. If that's what you want to call them, they were sand niggers. That's what they called them. That's what they were. They went in there. I really should edit that out. But camel jockeys, date farmers. Dates. You know what dates are? They come from the date palm. That's what they did. They didn't know they had oil. But in the 1950s, the United States went to these regions and said, hey, we could teach you how to pump oil. Wouldn't that be a great thing? Good for everybody. But they didn't realize that they would become greedy and selfish, and they would start wars and have dictatorships. They just didn't have the organization that they should have had. And that's why we fight wars in that region. So I hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully you guys don't think I'm too off the reservation when it comes to this thought process. But if you think that fighting a war since 1990 is cheap, just so that we can drive around in our cars and give farmers the finger, then you really need to rethink the way you look at the world. And you need to give a little more respect to the farmer that's actually driving out in that field. Yeah, he's burning diesel fuel, and he's also burning soybeans, because I get B20. I do. My diesel fuel's B20, so 20% of my fuel, and it's cheaper. That's the other thing. It's cheaper. I can't get anything but B20 through that place, or maybe it's that's 2%. It's not B20. It's 2%. I can't get B20. It's 2% diesel fuel, and it should be 10% right now, but they're not doing that because the cost of soybeans went too high, and farmers started to advance. And when you have an advancing farming operation, you don't have farmers selling off their land for development and industry in weird ways. That's how that works. Housing developments crop up when you're not making any money because the kids don't want to take over the farm. And I'd like to see ethanol go to 50%. I'd like to see diesel be 50% soybeans. And I would really love to see that. But until then, we just got to be at the mercy of the government and foolish people that think that fighting wars is less expensive than actually growing a crop here on our homeland, producing feed for our cattle, our hogs, our whatever, horses, I don't know, whatever, poultry, pork, beef. There you go. Dairy, but whatever. Thanks for watching. Leave your comments below. We'll do another one of these on Wednesday.